Now it's time for our weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. All yours, Dan.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And of course, all eyes are focused on what the U.S. will be doing, President Trump, in terms of any tariffs or sanctions on Canada. And of course, involved in the three areas that tend to be more noticeable. That is, of course, drug cartels operating in Canada and sending their products south of the border, particularly fentanyl. The next one, of course, migration concerns about undocumented and suspicious people making their way to the United States to do some damage. And of course, the one that doesn't get a lot of discussion, supply management. So however this balances out and whether it's going to be over several months, it's clear that one thing is going to have to be considered here. First and foremost, the value of the Canadian dollar. It has lost a bit of power this week, 143, now 145, 145 pennies to buy a US dollar. That means a slight increase in gas prices, although in the last week we've seen gas prices across Canada and diesel drop, mostly the result of warmer weather and, of course, feeling from the President Trump that he's going to drill a lot more oil, therefore we're not going to need these products as much as we did before, or at least there's going to be a greater supply of it. Whatever the case should be, it looks like the uncertainty around what implications are for the Trump administration's tariffs on Canada will weigh very heavily in the direction of oil. It could go either way. Oil could go up because, of course, a sanction, but of course, the tariff would also mean less oil being sold. Therefore, there'd be a glut of oil, at least on the Canadian side. So the theory holds, despite the weakness in the Canadian dollar. We'd also have to look at other factors which aren't really geopolitical beyond our two borders or beyond the two countries in our shared border. And that's normally we concern ourselves with demand and globally in China, demand in Europe, etc. Those things will be put on the side for the week ahead. So I'm basically calling this week a bit of a neutral move. It won't go up, it won't go down, as we try to digest whether or not the tariffs take place immediately or whether they'll be over a period of 7 months, and whether they can be addressed, in fact, before they take effect, whenever that period of time should be over the next few months. I'm not expecting this to be a draconian, immediate impact, but again, I have no basis on which to make a claim either way. I'm not in Donald Trump's head, so I don't know how this is going to turn out. I do know that his advisors are trying to provide him as much data and information that brings things up to reality as far as how energy prices and how, as far as sanctions are concerned or tariffs are concerned. We use the word sanctions because that's in fact what the Americans are trying to do. Now, having said all this, it looks like oil may be exempted. If that's the case, then of course everything just continues as normal. But it has highlighted, Teresa, the fact that Canada really missed the boat and spent too much time virtue signaling over climate change, blocking pipelines and putting emission caps on industry. However, that is perceived by people on both sides of this debate. The reality is that we are not living up to the expectations of our partners, both on natural gas and oil, who've asked Canada, many of them, that Canada provided long before the United States or any other country for that matter. And we've said there's no business case. That's a pretty hard pill to swallow for most Canadians now. We're finding our standard of living is declining. Debts are increasing, not just their own personal debts, but the national debt, sub-sovereign debt. And we are looking at some really crazy ideas, like, for instance, giving everybody a check as we did during the COVID period of time, which will likely put the Canadian economy into an absolute recession, which would put us beyond the reach of reduction in interest rates as we borrow more money. The reality, however, is more and well beyond the issue of energy, although it has been in the past a very strong, important card for Canada to play in these kind of negotiations. The reality is that Canada rooked itself on the East Coast and the West Coast by preventing pipelines from being built. And when we did build one, it's because we allowed lawfare to go after the integrity of our permitting process. That's why you and I are on the hook for $34 billion to build a Trans Mountain pipeline when Kinder Morgan would have built it for zero. How do you think that's going to look on the books when you got $1.3 trillion debts in terms of a national debt now that you've had to add more to it and everything else? It seems that this is a government that's taking the position that you can spend with abandon, you can offer people money. And we see this not just federally, but also here in the province of Ontario, the Ford government saying, yeah, we made a big mistake on the EVs and this is going to be really bad. We're going to give everybody a check to sit at home. Well, the reality is that that's borrowed money, and that's borrowed money on the backs of ourselves as taxpayers, our children, and their grandchildren.
Thanks for that, Dan.